all for coming tonight to the Pueblo City County Library District and joining us for our program on what is underneath our wonderful city of Pueblo. I have with us Tracy Beach, and she is doing some research and has been in these spaces throughout Pueblo and also the state of Colorado and even beyond. So I'm going to let her take it away and share with you her information.
Hi. Up here is a picture of my kids in Durango, and they're actually in street clothes looking down into a manhole cover with crystals in it. Down here, you have my kids that I dress in vintage clothes inside of the tunnels in Kansas looking up through the manhole cover. To give people an idea, you're looking into the past when you're looking through these manhole covers. That's where these tunnels are located. Now, you're going to see a lot of pictures of my kids in these tunnels simply because it gives idea of depth, because a lot of people are under the impression you crawl through these tunnels. You don't. You actually, a lot of them 7, 8, 9 foot tall. So I have a lot of pictures of my kids in the tunnels in which people might need a little bit of help to understand how tall these things are. So they've been everywhere. Okay, the basic history is underground tunnels. Okay, they were used, the vaults, the crypts, secret passages, and catacombs were first built around 4000 BC in Babylonia. The Romans were the first to use the barrel vaulting method in large projects. A barrel vault is also called a tunnel vault. It's simply a series of arches placed side by side. Then you end up with a tunnel. You just simply attach all the vaults together. This is an example of a barrel vault. This is pretty much what you're going to see in the basements of the below ground areas. This is, of course, the Roman Colosseum. And you can kind of see it's simply arches attached to each other, makes a long area. Now, a lot of them actually in Pueblo and a couple other towns actually have Romanesque ceilings, which I thought was kind of fascinating. Now, in Great Britain, which was controlled by Rome in 43 AD until 410 AD, they took vault making to the next level. They built underground rooms, tunnels, shops, burial vaults, everything, secret passages. In 1585, when English started to colonize America, they brought their love of below ground vaults with their tunnels with them. This here is actually in Piccadilly Circus. This is actually a Romanesque type one that was done in Piccadilly Circus. You can see how the vaults go. When the colonists came to America, they were introduced to an invention that would change the underground tunnels forever. It's called the deck light. A deck light is a large piece of hand-blown glass that was embedded in the deck of a ship that allowed light to shine below deck. And get my tall assistant over here. This is a deck light. This is actually, there was only one ship they were able to discover that had one deck light in it. When the deck light is held up, it is flat to the deck of the ship. When the light goes down, the light comes down the bottom, lights up underneath the ship. Now, the reason that they did this was because a lot of times they were carrying flammables down there, gunpowder, things like that. You couldn't go and exactly have lamps and things down there, so they invented these. When the colonists came over, they saw these as ways to light up the underground areas. That's where they got the idea for a vault light. Despite the fact underground tunnels were first built in New York City in the early 1800s, the concept of the deck light was not introduced until 1834. Before then, a cutout would be made into the wall of a tunnel to allow a candle or a lantern to be put in the area. They also hung them from large nails, or they mailed a small shelf. Now in this picture here, which is actually taken in Pueblo, this is actually on the wall, the inside of a tunnel. You can actually see the cutout in the concrete wall where they actually put the lamps or the candles so that they could light their way. Now here, this picture is actually taken in Kansas. You can actually see where it's simply sitting on a little shelf. The first vault lights were invented in 1834 by Edward Rockwell, improved by Thias Hyatt in 1845. This involved taking a manhole cover and embedding it with small round crystals that would allow light into the below ground areas. For larger areas, grates were used and embedded with the same crystals. For better ventilation, grates without crystals were also used above the windows. Now, the crystals that they used, have anyone ever seen the manhole covers with the crystals embedded in them? Okay, these here, this is what you're seeing right here. Now these four here are actually originals from the late 1800s. I was able to purchase these from an antique shop. Now they still actually, a lot of places, Boston, New York City, actually restore all their vault lights. So there's companies that go and actually make replacements. Now they're a slight bit thicker, different sizes, but it's the same basic idea. And some of them are extremely very, very tiny. And this here will give you a better idea. My daughter will pass this around. This is actually a copy of an authentic 1880 advertisement for a man who invents vault light covers and the lenses. And this will give you a better idea of how the light shines into the room, the way the room looks from below, and give you an example of the manhole covers with the crystals in case you actually haven't seen any, which I do have some pictures on here. This here is the picture that she's looking at right now. This here is an actual ad advertising the vault light covers. What you're looking at when you see these tunnels, this is the building, this is the basement wall, this is the street. You have these big, huge covers over it, the sidewalk. Opens up this entire area down here. This area will be embedded with crystals. It would light up this entire downstairs area. It's because when the colonists first started coming here and the cities were very, very popular, they needed all the room they could get. They had below ground shops down there, and they had storage down there, and they just wanted all the space that they could have and utilize everything. This here are the manhole covers with the crystals in them. Now when you see these, most of them, of course, the crystals have been stolen or they've broken out. The reason it's purple is because when the light hits it for too long, it actually changes the color of the crystals. Now this is another design, actually shows the exact same ones. There was hundreds and hundreds of designs. The original design actually did not have the small ones. It had a large circle in the center. Unfortunately, that just ended up making a light in the middle of the floor. So the man who then invented them later, we started out flat like this. You're not going to get very much light from that. He remembered these. The rest of them had points on the end to allow the light to disperse in the room. This here is another example. You can see that they're all turned purple. This is a close-up of what you're seeing. They're exactly these things right here, but they've turned purple with age. These ones must have been in the shade, I guess, because they're not purple. This here is actually in Colorado Springs. This is an area outside of a store, and you can see the entire area is a big, huge vault cover, and the entire thing is covered in crystals. Now, I was not able to get into this basement because they'd actually sealed it off in the basement, leaving this there. This is outside of Canyon City, outside of a store I still can't get into the basement of. There's actually 4 of these, and it actually leads to what's called the mall. It's below ground shops. There's 4 different shops down there. And this here shows all the different crystals. That's in Canyon City, outside of the Strathmore Hotel on Main Street. There's actually 3 or 4 of those down there, but I can't get into the basement. He won't let me down there. This here is a restaurant called The Vault. It's a bar restaurant. This place actually is on my list of places that do give tours. There's only 2 places in Colorado that do. This place is one of them. Now what he has here is he has the original, this is the step into his restaurant with the original lights. The front has the glass block. Now at night, the whole thing lights up. And I actually went down here and did a lot of research in here. And when you go inside of it, you can actually see the lights all above your head and all the colors all shine into the basement. Now, this is in Denver. It's called The Vault. It's a restaurant, but it's not called The Vault because of the below ground tunnel. It's actually when they remodeled the place, they found somebody had drywalled over an old bank vault, and they discovered that, and they named it that because the inside of the vault has scratches in it, and it's creepy, so they like to use that as part of their tour. And they don't charge for their tour. He's a very, very nice man. You've got to call ahead, and he'll take you for a tour of that. Well, actually, the crystals are actually blown glass. It's just a ball of blown glass. And then they just embedded them into the sidewalk and into the manhole covers, and then the light could come in through the little pieces of blown glass. So they're not actually crystals, they're glass. Now this here is actually taking in Salida, but what I'm using this to explain is that this here is the tunnel. This here is where the window used to be. This is a metal grate. The sidewalks in Salida and all around would have grates above each of the windows to allow air and the ventilation into the below ground areas. In Salida, they covered all the old grates with the new sidewalk, which I don't know why. And then this, of course, it's also in Pueblo. I think I have a picture of the Pueblo one that actually still has the spot where the grate would have been to allow the air into his windows. This here is a picture also taken from Salida. This is actually the same store. This is the original wood sidewalks. I don't know how good the picture is. The grates are right here. Do you see the grates? These dark things right here on the sidewalk. These are actually the original metal grates that would have been above the windows in the below ground areas. The below ground vaults and tunnels were used for storage, coal delivery, delivering merchandise, underground shops, and for people to get one place to another without being seen and to avoid bad weather. Tunnels and vaults were usually constructed during the building of a basement. It was constructed out of brick and stone, just like the rest of the building. It was not located in the main footprint of the building. To support the roof, steel beams were placed across the top and they covered with stone slabs. A sidewalk was in place on top to hide the area from view. Now, I'm not exactly sure if this is what they were, but from what I've seen, it's railroad ties that they used to hold up these things. This here is actually taken in Pueblo. You can actually see the walls of the inside of the vault, the railroad tie going across. They would have the wall here, lay the railroad ties like this, take large pieces of stone, put it on top, build a sidewalk on top of that. So this picture actually shows sidewalk, stone, this is the railroad tie, and then the regular rocks underneath. This here is an old picture of Pueblo. Each of my chapters is going to have an old picture of the town because I like horse and buggies. And I think they're really cool. This here is, of course, the famous 1921 flood, which actually got to 12 foot high, I believe, 12 foot high at its highest point. And this one, let's see. Do what? It flooded all the tunnels, but then they were then emptied out because the water got up to Santa Fe Avenue also. This picture here is after the flood, kind of showing all the debris and the junk and all the big, huge mess. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is the insane asylum. Now, everybody has heard probably that the State Mental Hospital has tunnels. Yes, they do. They do have tunnels. It was opened in 1879, had 12 patients. The number of buildings in the hospital's 40 acres grew. They needed to access all the new buildings. The tunnel system was started in the 1930s. This allowed them to access all the different buildings on the property without having to go above ground. There's 3 miles of tunnels on that property. None of these tunnels go off the property. They're on the property only. Now, these were actually used to transport patients, deliver supplies, and hold all the utilities. In 1999, they decided it would only be used for utilities. The tunnels do still exist. No one's allowed in there. Don't ask. I couldn't get in there. But it's only for utilities. Now, they were nice enough to let me use pictures of the tunnels being constructed. This is one of the ones, 1934. It actually shows how they're making the tunnels on the property. This one here is actually a repair done back in the 70s to one of the tunnels. Now, this shows what the inside of the tunnels look like. You can actually see all the utilities and the pipes run along the ceiling. You just have your basic brick, your basic doorways. Now, imagine 3 miles of these things are underneath that property. This picture here shows a man with a little cart pulling supplies and food. The lady explained to me at the museum that this is how they transferred all the supplies around, these little cars. They would just drive all the 3 miles, all the way around, deliver everything they needed. They did transfer patients from one building to another. She says, no, they didn't lock people into little rooms in the basement. It looks kind of like a golf cart, kind of, without a roof on it. Now, Colorado Fuel and Iron, they actually do have a tunnel. They actually stopped using the tunnel in the late 1990s. Now, these people actually, they used it to allow their workers to go underneath of the road. The company is on this side. All their buildings and their hospital were on the other side of the street. This allowed them to be able to transfer someone that was injured or sick, or just so they wouldn't get hit by a car. Now, they only open this thing up once a year. Don't ask me why. If you go down to Fuel and Iron, you can ask them when they're going to be opening up again. Now, this was, of course, going down. This was, of course, coming back up. Now, one of the men that gave us the tour explained that every man there would get a token with his name and his number on it. As he went in there, he would drop his token into a box. Then he would go through the tunnel, go to work. When he came back through, he had to retrieve his token. This made sure everybody was accounted for. If someone was missing, they simply looked in the box, see who was missing, which I thought was kind of ingenious. Now, this here is my daughter standing in the tunnel. I don't know why the picture's like this, but it is. These tunnels are extremely long, and it causes that little eerie, glowy effect inside the tunnel. Yes. This is when you first go down. When you go into at the museum, the entrance, you first go down. These are the steps you come down to go into the tunnel. Now this tunnel was expanded in the 50s when the interstate was put in. And this is the side when you come back up to the side that has a steel mill on it. It's actually a pretty elaborate building. Now, over at the bowling lanes at 1000 West 6th Street, really nice guy. This building here was it's a very ugly, boring looking building. I wouldn't think there's anything down there. This building was built in the 1940s, and the basement was actually bomb shelter during the Cold War. Now, after the Cold War, everything calmed down. They turned it into a bowling alley. Now, when you go in there, it looks like it's this ugly, boring building. You go down this little glass, they open up this little glass door, walk down this little staircase, and there's this huge, massive bowling alley. It's really nice. There's a restaurant, a lounge. It's really nice. I was extremely impressed. Now, the man explained to me that these tunnels here, the reason I'm including these is these give you an example of what the old tunnels were used for. Now, everybody that has a store up on the main level has a doorway and a staircase that leads to each of these different doorways. Now, these people are allowed to go down, access the use of the basement, access the utilities, store things down there, and have deliveries made. Now, this is, of course, exact to what they did back in the 1800s, which is why I'm including this. He might let you down there, but there's no real reason. It looks just like that. Now, we called this the ghost building. Actually, my daughter actually found this picture, and we were going through the pictures here at the library. It's near Santa Fe and 2nd. It was taken, we're guessing, late 1800s, early 1900s. The reason I'm including this, if you look at this building right here, you have a foundation of a building that was torn down. Right in the center, you have the tunnel right here. Now, this tunnel actually matches the one that was told about that was actually on 4th Street. The people in this store could accent the tunnel this way. They could accent it this way. Both people could then accent the tunnel at the street. So that kind of gives you an idea of that. Now, this is Old Time Antiques on South Union Avenue. Now, Union Avenue is lined with windows and doors. A lot of them have been covered over, or they put plastic wrap on them, or the pictures didn't turn out well because they had a bunch of junk in the front. So this is actually the best of these ones. Now, they actually, in their basement, they actually have a really, really nice window down there and a door. This one's nice because even though the glass has been removed, the original wood frame there, the windowsill is still there, and then you have the last going down where the plaster used to be, because this used to be a below-ground shop. There would be access through going to the tunnels. This is his doorway. Almost missed it. We had to move a whole bunch of plywood. You can see the arch here, where the doorway is right here, and it has already been filled in with rocks because the tunnel itself has been filled in with sand. Now, this tunnel here is not in Pueblo. This is what you would see if that door was opened. This is actually a tunnel in Salida, one of the largest ones in the state. And this is the wall of the building. This is the bricked-in windows here. This is the sidewalk, and this would be the wall facing the street. Now, this thing is about a block long. The original owner, when the sidewalk started to collapse, this was his little makeshift support system. And he cleaned the entire thing out. I'm trying to actually get him into possibly doing tours in Salida because it's really nice. Now, this is also another ghost building. Now, there's actually, the utility company had found out that I was researching these vaults. They actually contacted me telling me they're going to be filling one in. They said in the alleyway near 4th Street in Santa Fe, some garbage trucks are starting to collapse the road. The alleyway was starting to sink. So he said, we're going to be filling this thing in. You want to go inside of it. Now, I didn't realize going inside of it meant going through a manhole cover. Manholes are this big, okay? I had to go like this, put my hands up. But they were actually really, really nice about it. They made sure it was perfectly safe. Now, this actually is the only one in the state I was able to find. Now, the utility company was able to get this for me. Now, back in the day, they did these things called Sanborn maps, where they would actually map out the entire town. A man named Sanborn did these. This is actually a Sanborn map of Pueblo. Now, you have the original Cruz Beg store, no longer there. You have all these different stores that are no longer here. This is the alleyway that I was down. This is a laundromat. This is where I went in at. This one was collapsing. They hadn't yet torn this one open. This one here had already been filled in once. The sand had settled. They had opened it back up. You'll see a picture of that. I went into this one here through the manhole. What you're going to be seeing when I show you the picture is this empty vault room right here. When I went in through here, you can see this had been filled in with sand. The sand is pouring into this vault from this vault right here. All these buildings are gone. That is empty space. This is what the utility people are looking for. Underneath of this manhole cover is an empty vault. As the trucks drive through, the garbage trucks and everything, they're collapsing these vaults. Instead of restoring them or saving them, they simply cut this entire thing out, throw out the manhole cover, fill it with sand, cover it back up with concrete. Yes?
Would that be a good indication that there is,
oh yeah.
Or not cave, but a tunnel,
oh yeah.
You walk past a manhole cover and there's a bit of a depression that
Yep, that's what's underneath of it is vaults. A lot of stores is a void. Yeah. It's an underground room that they would use for possibly storage and things like that. If you see a manhole cover with crystals, there's something underneath of it. Normally it's a tunnel or a vault, but there is something under this, but this does indicate that something is collapsing, so I really wouldn't drive over it.
Did that have crystals?
No. Because it was a vault, not a tunnel. It was just a storage room. Now this here was the second one I talked about. This one here had originally had a manhole cover on it, had been removed. They'd filled this area in with sand. The sand had settled. They had reopened it back up. Now when I looked in here, you could still only see about this much empty space, and then they're just going to top it off and cover it back up. Now this third one here that they're opening up right here is the one that I showed you. Now back here in this empty parking lot is the big huge empty vault that I'll be able to see into. Now these men were really, really nice. They actually had someone else go in there. I actually figured out why a lot of utility workers are overweight. Because the thin guy has to go into the manhole. Because there was one thin guy and he was new and he's like, oh man, and he had to go down there with his arms up. And they said, okay, now remember, if you don't hear back from you in the count of 3, that means you're dead. We'll pull you back up and revive you. So they actually put down a meter and it actually checks for the gases and everything like that. But everybody else was overweight, and I think that's why. Now, this is the outfit they put on me. The man standing right here actually took off his outfit and they put it on me. And then they took my picture because I thought it was funny. Now this right here, this tripod, sits on top of the manhole cover. Then there's a hook. They hook you on the back, and they lower you down with this thing with the crank. I'm a little claustrophobic, so I had to hold my breath while I went through the manhole cover. It was a little tight. This is what I saw when I went down there. Now, this side here is the side that faces, now this is the road here. The thing I thought was neat, you got the original bricks here, but since this was a storage room for a store, they actually decorated it with decorative rock, which I thought was kind of weird for a storage room. But then you can see it had a bunch of debris in it. Now this entire vault was about 20 by 20. Now in here you can see, here's the manhole cover up here. This here is the gas detector that they had hanging there that would beep so they could pull me up if they needed to. This here, all this dirt is actually pouring in through that empty lot that I told you where there's a huge vault. They had already filled it with dirt and it was starting to fill in this area here. This big huge beam, now when I went down there it appeared there was a huge double door right here. The doors have been removed, you can see the big doorway. So then they would have been able to store things down there. Now, Golden M Southwest and Indian Art Building. Now this is kind of an interesting building. This building has the only access to 5 basements. Now normally when I go into a basement, you'll go into, and perhaps this store will have access to these 3 basements, but each basement has its own beat up staircase that goes up, and it's simply sealed off. There's no indication there was ever any staircases except for this one. Now this one here, I'm actually going to hand out, my kids can hand out this one. My daughter and me actually spent about 2 hours down here. This actually will give you an idea of what I'm showing you. This explains how there is 5 basements accessed by 1 staircase. This staircase here is actually in the back of the shop. You actually have to go outside to get to this doorway. Now when you go through to the right-hand side, you will enter this old doorway on the right. You will then enter a room that actually has a sealed up door and a sealed up window that face the tunnels. If you continue to your right, you will see a doorway that actually has a piece of plywood in it. Now, the lady on the other side did not have access to get into her basement whatsoever, so was not able to see if it continued down the block. Going back, if you turn to the left, you have a doorway where the door has been ripped out. And they had a lot of taxes down there. I don't know why, but they had a lot of taxes. Now on this one, you'll notice there's a bricked-in doorway and a bricked-in window. Now these two here actually face the back of the building. Now this building was in the red light district, so it is possible that these outside doorways may have been used to allow access into possibly a brothel. If you go back through the last door, you will actually see there is a sealed up window and a sealed up double door right here that actually led into the tunnel area. Now this building is actually across the street and kind of down a little bit from the train station, which actually would make sense. This would then of course allow them to go back and forth from the train station just like they did up in Denver. Now this is Union Antiques at 200 South Avenue. They just have a really, really nice large window in the basement. It's kind of hard to see. They got a fence in front of it. You see there's an outline here. There's a window right there. Now a lot of times when you go into these basements in these stores, you don't realize what you're looking at, and they don't even know what they are. They just put a bunch of junk in front of them. This man, very nice guy. Now we had actually gone up to his store and we asked him if he had any weird windows or doors in his basement. He got all excited and he goes, "Oh my God, someone's going to tell me what this thing is in my basement." He went over, locked the door, turned the 5-minute sign around, went downstairs and posed in front of the door and said, "Please tell me what this is. No one will tell me what this is." And he was so excited. He was a really nice guy. Now his door actually is one of the fully intact doors, still has some of the glass in it and a transom window, which is actually extremely rare in these tunnel doors. Throughout the entire state, I've only actually seen a couple of the transom windows. And right here behind this bag of duck decoys, which I didn't want to move because he was already back upstairs, you can see there's a frame here of the large, very, very large tall window. A lot of these windows were overly large because they had the grates above them, trying to get as much light in as possible. Also, these were also storefronts, and a lot of times, since you walked through the tunnels, they would put their advertisement on the outside of this glass, and that's why they wanted as much advertising space as possible. Now here we've got a used furniture store. This is down Santa Fe. Now Santa Fe itself has coal chutes and storage rooms. It's 4th and Santa Fe that has the tunnel. Now right here you will see this is your basic coal chute. You got the coal chute here. Now the reason there is a wire that attaches to a hook underneath the coal chute that holds the manhole cover in, and it is wired shut. That way people have a harder time prying it in and robbing the place. This actually was the coal chute here. Now this place actually it was taller in there, but they have filled it in with dirt and raised the floor. Here's both of the kids in this one. This here is a storage room. You can see there's a sidewalk right above your heads. You have the steel beams across, which are the railroad ties that hold up everything. They have them across here. I guess they're really nervous it's going to collapse. There's a lot of beams. Here you have a window. This is a storage room. The reason the kids are squatting down, the man explained, he actually had the floor lifted because of flooding. This is the locksmith security, exact same street, right next door. This man has 2 really nice storage rooms, so now see why he's got it filled in with garbage. He could really use these. On here, you can see this is the original doorway right here. Another brick one was put in here, and then he filled it full of pieces of concrete, which I've never understood that. Right next to it is a whole another storage room. The arch going like this. The rooms are huge, and they're full of dirt and rocks and debris. I asked him why. He just said he hadn't got around to it. Now this one is my crown jewel. This here, we'll hand this picture around. We've been in this one numerous times. This is the one that they're trying to destroy in Pueblo. We have actually done an entire rendering of the size. Now this one actually is almost 9 foot tall. It is 10 foot wide. It is 96 feet long. Now this one actually continues down 4th Street, but they have it sealed off at the street. Now this is my kids posing in this one. This actually has a large coal room that you'll see on the drawing. That's at one end. It's a 10 by 10 storage room. It's a coal chute. Has a coal chute at the top. Now this one actually has the Romanesque ceiling similar to what I saw in Salida and have seen in other towns. You can see the ceiling goes like this. Now I don't know what that was for because there's a flat sidewalk above it, but it makes it really pretty, and I don't know why they did it. But this thing goes the entire length of the street. It is 10 foot wide, and the man restored the entire thing, and he stores his bicycles in it. Now, you can see here, he has an original window with the glass still in it. You have window frames and everything, because remember, this was the outside of a below-ground shop. This window would allow you to advertise what was in here. This was a hardware store. You can see above here where the sidewalk is, this little area right here with wood over it, that's where the grate would have been to allow the air and the light to come in, open up the window, allow fresh air and light to come into the basement room. Now, you'll see from the blueprints, on the Santa Fe Street side, he's got numerous storage rooms. One of his storage rooms was an explosives room where the hardware store would store explosives. My daughter looks very, very serious. And you can see here, you can have the steel beams right across here to help support everything. This entire thing has been completely restored. And I'm really hoping that the city does not tear this thing apart. And that is my last picture. Now, my book itself has 13 other towns, plus the Broadmoor, plus the Stanley, but I'm just giving you a taste of just Pueblo. So does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Tracy.